Chocolate and ginger together?
Oh my God, really?
What?
Okay, but why are we not recording this? Chocolate and ginger together?
No way.
Oh my
I
God.
knew you were going to say that on me. Coming up on Need to Know, the best recipe Tianna Garten ever developed, a family's shocking freezer dessert surprise, and how to make your own holiday spice blends. All that and everything else you need to know. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Need to Know. I'm Gemma Stafford, professional chef, cookbook author, and the creator of Bigger Bolder Baking. And I'm joined today with my two lovely ladies, Ami Shukla, who is the culinary director at BBB, and Tianna Cohen, who is a professional host and an amateur baker. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to jump into Hot from the Oven this week. So if you're ready, let's just get on into it. Do you both remember a few episodes ago when we talked about the viral scrambled pancake?
I do. Yes. How could I forget?
Well, our girl strikes again because I was on TikTok and she made a scrambled brownie in the same effect of the scrambled pancake. She put the brownie batter in a pan on the stove, scrambled it up, and you can watch it if you're watching it on YouTube, or the link's in the show notes, but I had to share it with you. She also scrambled some cookies. She's unstoppable.
Does she not have a stove? An oven?
It's so funny to me, but then it reminded me that we actually got a ton of comments on our YouTube and on our Instagram when we talked about the viral pancake, that the viral pancake is actually real. So I wanted to share that with everybody. The viral scrambled pancake trend is actually an Austrian dish called Kaiserschmarrn, which is lightly sweetened, torn up pancakes. And it translates to emperor's mess and comes from the Austrian Emperor Franz Joseph I, who really enjoyed the dish. And I actually had people that I know tell me that this was a family tradition. And she's like, oh, I heard it on your podcast, but my grandma used to make that.
No way.
Isn't that crazy?
I think to give that girl some credibility, this is kind of a coincidence that I think is actually a real thing.
Yeah.
I saw the scrambled brownie, and whatever works for you online, you repeat over and over again. So I'm sure it tastes delicious. It's brownie, but scrambled and cooked and going to be yummy, and cookies and pancakes. So yeah, just not for me.
Was it crunchy? Do you remember from was it soft like a brownie, like bits of brownie, or?
It kind of looked like oh my gosh, almost like a crumble, how that would feel. It's right. Probably, I can't imagine it's like a pancake. It won't get as fluffy because it's little tiny pieces.
Yeah,
would be my guess. But it did make me think about when we talked about baking fails. Mm-hmm. If you truly mess up a bunch of brownies, you could just crumble them up and be like, I scrambled these, and then it's not a baking fail.
Yeah. That's true.
It's brilliant.
Well, maybe the scrambled brownie also has a really cool backstory. So if you're out there and there's a cool tradition with the scrambled brownie, just like the scrambled pancake, please let us know. So our next topic, hot from the oven, is actually cold from the freezer. Today.com shared a story about a family who found an 84-year-old biscuit in their late grandmother's freezer with a note dating the biscuit back to the 1940s.
Sounds kind of silly, but a biscuit or a cookie, or sorry, is it an American biscuit or a English biscuit? It's in America, right?
Yeah, I believe it's an American biscuit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
They're still going to be gross.
You mean more like a scone, like an American biscuit?
An American biscuit.
Right. It's not a cookie, I don't think.
Okay.
But it says that the biscuit was created during World War II and baked before polio vaccine, colored television, and Slinky.
Oh my gosh.
The Slinky, I guess. But then, so I was reading that article, and then I found that they found a piece of Queen Elizabeth's wedding cake, also from the 1940s, and that is currently being auctioned off. That is not edible, though. I would argue that neither one of them are edible, but it's being auctioned off as a possession, a prized possession. But it made me wonder, truly, these are from the 1940s. How long should something be in your freezer before you should probably throw it away?
Well, not that long.
Yeah, not that long.
Yeah.
How did it make its way through I'm sure multiple moves and
right,
all sorts of stuff and life changes, and broken freezers.
I imagine that biscuit was just in the back of your freezer, never cleaned out, or back then maybe there weren't frost-free freezers, so maybe it was just iced over for a long time, and then but why did it seem to have survived multiple moves?
Yeah, multiple generations.
So she was hanging on to it like deliberately. That's funny.
I suppose at some point, if you're like, well, I've held on to it this long, I mean, then when's the occasion to throw it away?
Right. I mean, I feel like they can't throw it away.
Right.
Now.
Right.
Do you know how much they're auctioning off the cake for?
That's a really good question. I do not. At the time of the article, I don't think it had started.
Oh, okay. The auction started.
But
I think the starting bid was something like £500.
Oh.
The starting bid.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't know if it actually sold.
I'm sure it will go for a lot.
Well, here's the thing too. If you are you're buying something, you think you want to display it, but this thing has to stay in a freezer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you just pull it out every now and then, show people, look, I have this cake.
Is there anything that one of your family members had made in your childhood or
what's really funny is growing up, the house I grew up in, in the 80s, we had this huge chest freezer, like the ones you kind of in America you'd put in a garage, and we did have a separate room for it. So I have to ask my mom about this, but for many years she had a frozen Santa cake in the freezer, like covered in cling wrap, not to be eaten. I don't know who made the cake. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why we were hanging on to it. But that was there, I remember, for quite some time. I probably wanted to eat it. That's why I was intrigued by it. But I have no idea why this decorated Santa cake was in the freezer. And I know that my mom didn't decorate it, because this was it looked like a real Santa. It was really cool. So I actually have to ask her about that, where it came from.
Oh, yeah, that'd be so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have a real, with my family, a visceral reaction to keeping anything, because my parents have never thrown anything away, never want to waste food, never anything. And so it is not uncommon for us to go there and find food that's been there for a really long time.
Oh my gosh.
Things in the back of the freezer, in the cabinets, in the fridge. We all have to open things very carefully.
Oh my God. My mom is, she has this rule, when we go home, when you have a small child, and I mean, you remember this, multiple snacks. Mm-hmm. And, I want this, but then they don't eat it. So it goes back into the fridge in a bowl. And sometimes it wasn't covered over, slices of apples or grapes or half a cheese stick. And, there's just so much of it going on throughout the day. And I remember when we stayed there with my mom when George is around 3, she was just throwing out these, what's this, throwing out these bowls. And then the next time we came home, she was like, don't leave your snacks in the fridge. But you go, look at my fridge right now. It has a half an eaten apple covered over in cling wrap. And it's just, I often have to go through our fridge on a weekly basis and spend probably an hour throwing away bowls of not, a little bit of oatmeal and something that he says to me, look, will you save that for later? Mm-hmm. And like a fool, I do. And then I'm just no, everything is going in the bin.
Oh, yeah, Marie Kondo changed my life. Everything is always gone in my house. I don't keep anything.
That might be because of, if you're saying your parents don't throw things away, because I definitely have them. My parents, more my dad so than my mom, was a hoarder. Mm-hmm. And so me and my sister both, we do not hold on to anything. I don't eat leftovers. I don't take food home, from a restaurant. And thankfully I live with a bunch of boys. And so if I overcook a meal, here you go.
Yeah.
I don't, because I have the same thing. I will never clean out Tupperware that has old food in it. I will just throw it away.
I think I heard somebody say that before too, that they have a real aversion to food in Tupperware. Uh-huh. Do you remember? I don't know who that was.
I don't know. I mean, I do wash out Tupperware.
What if it's really old? It's been in there too.
No, then throw away the Tupperware.
Yeah, that's what I just throw it away.
Do you know what I did yesterday? George this is the kind of child that I'm rearing. God love the person that marries him. But Kevin introduced him to whipped cream with waffles, and George has waffles on the weekend. And but we do our trick, because I'm not whipping up cream, and we only want a small bit for George. So we do the jar trick, and we put the cream in the jar, and then we shake the jar. And I have that recipe on biggerbolderbaking.com. It's a really fast way to whip cream, especially if you only want a small bit. And The problem is that, you know, as much as Kevin does around the house, he does not clean out the fridge. And the little jar sat there, like, and it was, you know, a week later, and I was like, oh God, I need to clean that out. And next thing you know, it was 2 weeks and 3 weeks and 4 weeks. And I'd say that jar was sitting in the fridge for around 8 weeks.
Oh no.
And I literally picked it up yesterday and I just threw the whole thing in the bin. I was like, there's just no, I'm not.
Gemma, you could have kept that in your freezer for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
You could have
Gross.
been dated.
Gross.
Dated before.
That's my bad.
70 days.
That's my bad.
Well, our final topic in Hot from the Oven is the Barefoot Contessa Ina Garten recently sat down with Today for their Dining with the Stars edition and shared all about her cooking, her hosting tips, and her favorite recipe that she's ever developed. Her favorite recipe is her French apple tart, and she says it's simple and elegant, which I love. So it made me wonder, do either of you have a simple and elegant go-to dessert?
I do. I looked at this tart, and for those of you listening or watching, check it out. It is very simple. I think Ina is simple. She's not complicated, and it's very classic French. And I was like, wow, that's really simple. But then I was like, I was kind of surprised. And I was like, wait a second. Those are the kind of things that are lovely. Puff pastry, apples, a little bit of sugar and whatever.
Can't go wrong.
My dessert that when I read that article, the first thing that sprung to mind for me was chocolate crisp with chocolate and pear crisp. So it's a chocolate crumble on top with chunks of bittersweet chocolate, and then on top of pears. With a little bit of, you know, cornstarch and stuff to like make a little bit of a sauce. That when if Kevin and I, if we were to have a dessert in the house, which we do very rarely, like make something for ourselves, that's what we'd make. It is absolutely, it's so decadent, so delicious. You've had that, right, on?
It's really good.
It is so, it's special. Like I've never had a chocolate cobbler. I remember I remember one day I was standing somewhere, like probably in Dublin airport, where I thought to myself, a chocolate and pear crisp would be really good together. And so I came home and I developed this recipe. And I'm not a huge pear person. This is heaven. It's in my second cookbook, actually, Bigger Bolder Baking Every Day. And I make it for special occasions and for like, you know, the holidays and stuff like that. It's so delicious. And so that's my number one.
Sounds so
I
good.
think I have two. When I think about elegant, the word elegant, I love fruit desserts, but they always seem a little rustic to me, no matter what. You know, pies, crisps, they always have this sort of. So when I was thinking, you know, what is it if something is, you know, on the rare occasion that I'm hosting a fancy dinner, a holiday dinner. We have a sinful chocolate tart on biggerbolderbaking.com.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just a chocolate crust and a really silky, simple chocolate filling, and it is so good, and I think it's so elegant. And the other thing that I love to make are little creme caramels, which are
fancy.
just, you know, elegant, but they're so simple. They're just a baked custard with a little caramel, and it's perfect at the end of like a Christmas dinner that's been heavy.
Yeah.
They're delicious and elegant, and I don't know. Those would be the things that I would go to. Something kind of silky, custardy.
Yeah, you know what? You just made me think of a creme brulee there. Like creme brulee to me, I never make creme brulee. And I don't know why, because it's not the first thing I think of, but I adore just a classic vanilla creme brulee. And my dad was a huge creme brulee fan. That was his kind of, you know, his ultimate dessert. And my mum used to make them for him. We were young, and then she would have leftovers and we could try them. But along that same vein of classic, simple French recipes, that's a really good one. Like any kind of a custardy base one is lovely. Baked custard.
Those all sound so delicious. Well, that is all I have this week from Hot from the Oven. I think when I get home, I'm going to go clean out my freezer, though. This is really inspiring. But now I'd love to get into In the Mix, because we are actually just a few weeks away from the holidays. And I thought we could talk about baking with holiday spices. Starting right off the bat, what are holiday spices? I feel like this time of year, certain spices shine. You are out buying, you know, things that maybe you wouldn't normally bake with. So I thought we could just kind of discuss what some of those are and what people should have stocked up.
Okay, so for spices, we have some classics. Cinnamon around the holiday season pretty much goes in everything. It's warm. It's toasty. Like when you eat it, I don't know about you guys, but I literally feel like physically warm. It's just such a comforting spice, and it definitely is one of those smells and flavors that kind of grounds you at this time of year, like during the holiday season. Nutmeg is another one. Nutmeg is a bit spicier, especially if you have the fresh nutmegs that you're grating. But again, like I feel like a more powerful flavor, especially when you have the fresh ones.
Well, yeah, and also classic for eggnog.
Yeah,
you
so
always think about that.
There are those things, or baked custards. When you have a baked custard, just not a creme brulee, but like a classic kind of English baked custard, you would grate nutmeg on top, and then like Ami said, eggnog. You definitely, it's a very unique flavor that you always kind of recognize as eggnog. And then there's things like ginger, dried ginger I'm talking about, that is spicy. Definitely used in moderation. I can't stand anything that's too gingery. We made a lovely gingerbread shortbread. Remember that one? And I felt like that was really subtle with fresh ginger and ground ginger.
Yeah, but ginger, also like with like a little orange zest, or that and like in a gingerbread cookie, gingerbread. All again, also sort of classic holiday flavors with molasses.
Yeah, spiced but not spicy. Definitely, it's one of the ones that you want to err on the side of caution a little bit.
Yeah, it can be. And then there's also cloves, which I think you also want to go light with.
Definitely.
They can definitely leave a bit of a taste in your mouth, though. Like cranberry and clove is really nice together. If you're doing mulled wine, orange, oranges and clove. I don't know if you guys ever did those little holiday crafts where you stick cloves in oranges.
I never did that. No, I think I know that in America. I just never did that growing up.
It's a real, it's a smell. It's something fun for kids to do.
Yeah.
It evokes holiday smells, which are so much about flavor. That can be really nice. Other unusual ones, not so much for me, but like cardamom is always a little bit unexpected. It's very warming, woody. It's in a lot of Swedish baking, but also a lot of Indian baking.
Quite floral. That what I like about, and I like it in certain applications. Quite floral, definitely a distinctive flavor. I don't know. I went to buy it recently, and for just a regular jar, are they 3-ounce jars or whatever, $18 at Whole Foods.
Wow. Yeah.
So I very rarely, I went to go buy it for one thing, and I was like, absolutely no dice, because I don't use this a lot. I don't make spice blends that often. So I was like, no, sorry, no cardamom this year.
Yeah. I mean, you can use, and it's. I think it again takes a light touch, or it can sort of take over everything. So you want to maybe, if you want to experiment with cardamom, you would maybe put it in a crisp where you would have cinnamon and just a little bit of cardamom. It would just add another dimension, sort of similar to the amount you would use a nutmeg.
Yeah. Do you remember in my second book that? This was your idea. We did roasted pan-fried strawberries and a cardamom cream. Do you remember that?
I remember the strawberries.
Yeah, and it was a cardamom cream. It was so delicious. Something I never would have thought of. It was so delicious. Oh my gosh! Like because of the floral flavors, it really complemented the strawberries. There was like kind of perfumey. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, now I feel like I need to go home and make
so
that right
good.
away.
Yeah.
There's also anise, star anise, and aniseed, which shows up in different shortbreads. There's a German cookie that has anise in it. It's another licoricey flavor, like fennel, but a little more intense, and that's also really good.
Yeah.
Is that the one that actually looks like a star?
Yeah.
Well, there are different kinds. So aniseed is like a little seed. And then there's star anise, which is shaped like a star. There are two different spices, very similar flavor profile. Also, fennel would fall into that category as well, a sort of licoricey taste.
I do. I have an amazing recipe for like this pork salad. It's kind of like a Thai-inspired salad, even though I don't know if star anise is a Thai flavor, but marinated in with like those kinds of spices. It's so good.
Oh yeah, well it's used in Chinese spice powder.
Oh yeah, I love that.
That's a big flavor in that mix.
Yeah, I love that.
That makes so much sense. How you explained how all these spices, even though they're all very commonly used this time of year, they all have very different they bring out different flavors.
Yeah.
I just had another baking fail, but it was just a total accident. I accidentally put nutmeg in a recipe that was supposed to be cinnamon, and I just didn't realize that I grabbed the nutmeg. It was muffins, and when I took a bite of the first one,
It's too much.
It was alarming.
Yeah.
I thought that, I think it might have been blueberry. I thought something was bad. Like an ingredient I used was like sour, and it was so sad. I gave them to all those boys I said I live with. They ate them. They didn't care. But so talking about all these spices, I thought we could talk about how you could pair them in maybe some unusual or different ways to help elevate your holiday recipes this year. And if you had any tips or things that people could use either in sweet and savory.
That's such a great question. I actually really love introducing unusual spices and combinations. I was actually just thinking that a few episodes ago, we sampled some Jenny's ice creams.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite flavors of those ice creams was the bay leaf cheesecake ice cream. And I thought, why not actually make a bay leaf cheesecake? So if you infuse some bay leaf with some heavy cream that you then put into the cheesecake, you might get this like really wonderful, sort of a little cinnamony kind of special cheesecake. Yeah. And so I thought that would be really good. But some of my other things that I like to explore, black pepper itself is a surprisingly floral. It's spicy, but it has these floral notes. There's a Swedish cookie called
Peppercorns? Or no,
the pepparkakor. Oh my God, I don't know how to say it. There's a Swedish cookie that has black pepper in it. It has a lot of spices in it. It has cardamom, ginger, cinnamon, but it also has black pepper in it, and it adds this wonderful warmth. You can add that to gingerbread. It shows up in like a chai masala spice that you can use, in chai, or you see a lot of people making chai spiced frostings or creams or whipped cream, anything like that. And then the other thing, there's some Middle Eastern spices that I think are so good, and people are just starting to know about them. One of them is sumac, which is the dried ground berry of the sumac. It's a sumac berry that's been dried. It's very citrusy. It has this, and it's this beautiful red color. So if you're making any kind of a citrus tart, there's a lot of citrus fruits that are coming into season now. You can sprinkle a little sumac right on top, and it has a beautiful touch. It's kind of unexpected. You can put it into shortbread if you want to do a little orange zest and sumac.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
I never think to use it in a sweet application.
Oh, it's so good. I mean, you can use it for sweet, savory. It's really nice. And the other one that I love to mix with chocolate is Urfa pepper, which is from Turkey. And it's not very spicy. It does have some heat, but if you just were to taste the ground up pepper on its own, it's sort of been cured and cured with a little oil and salt and ground up. That's usually how you'll find it. It has an almost dried fruit, a fruitiness to it and a chocolatiness to it. And it lends itself so well to any kind of like a chocolate truffle, if you want to sprinkle it on a chocolate tart. If you like heat with your chocolate, definitely try Urfa pepper. It's unexpected and delicious.
Sounds good. I've never heard that before.
Me either.
Yeah.
Mommy, you're always
so
teaching me
good.
something new.
I do have a funny story that I have to share really quick. One holiday, we were all asked around the table by my sister-in-law to bring something very meaningful to us that had changed our life. And people brought photos of family, friends, journals, letters. And I brought a jar of Urfa pepper because I had just discovered it. And I was putting it on everything. I was putting it on eggs. I was putting it on toast. I was putting it on, on chocolate truffles. And my kids still laugh at me to this day. They're like, Urfa pepper, it'll change your life.
Okay, where do you buy that? Can you buy it anywhere?
Well, you can definitely buy it online, and there are sort of specialty grocery stores in LA where I'll find them.
Oh, okay.
All over online. I'm not quite sure if you can find them now in any regular grocery store just yet.
Okay.
But yeah.
That would be a good
interesting ones.
Yeah, that would be a really good gift to give somebody too, because it's an unusual and could be fun for the holidays. And stick around, because at the end of this episode, we're actually going to be showing you how to make 2 different spice blends. We're going to do chai masala and mulling spice, 2 spice blends that you could maybe give out this holiday season. And now we're going to hear from our Bold Baking Network correspondents, and they're going to share their thoughts on baking with holiday spices.
Hi, I'm Amber, founder of Sweet Am's Cookie Art Club. Holiday baking season is a great time to add some spice to your cookie recipes. My personal favorite is cardamom. I have this big jar right here, and I use this in my orange vanilla spice cookie recipe. It adds a unique flavor, and it goes perfectly with my vanilla royal icing decorations. Gingerbread cookies are the star of my kitchen this time of year. Gingerbread cookie recipes call for a variety of spices like cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, and cloves. Rather than measuring out all of the different spices in the recipe, what I like to do sometimes is add up the measurements and use one pre-made spice mix, like pumpkin spice for example. It will save you some time and you might just create your new favorite cookie recipe. Even just adding a teaspoon of cinnamon, a pinch of nutmeg, or a little bit of cardamom to your favorite sugar cookie recipe is a great way to introduce spice into your cookies this holiday season. You can just sift these spices right into your dry ingredients, and your kitchen will smell amazing. Join me in my Cookie Art Club to get all of my cookie recipes, along with the perfect royal icing recipe to make amazing decorated cookies this holiday season.
And we're back with my favorite section of our show here, and that is the Bold Baking Hotline, where we answer questions directly from you. And all of our questions today are in the same theme. We're talking about chocolate, my favorite thing ever. So the first question is, what is the difference between bittersweet, semi-sweet, and unsweetened chocolate?
So this is, I have an article on biggerbolderbaking.com actually about the different types of chocolates. And chocolate for around the world, this is the kind of handy thing, is, you know, universally, there's different names for different ingredients and, you know, they might be different in different countries. The thing about chocolate is that universally it's graded by the cocoa solids. So it's easy to recognize what you need no matter what country you're in. 100% cocoa solids is an unsweetened bar of chocolate. So that is 100%. It is very dark. It is, like I said, unsweetened. So it is not something you want to pop in your mouth.
No, it's very bitter. Very
bitter. Mm-hmm. But I find that sometimes it can be a bit tricky to melt because it's so high in cocoa solids. But what I like to do, if I was making something like, say, a mousse, if I was melting chocolate to make a triple chocolate cookie, or I was making a brownie, I would do I would do bittersweet chocolate, and I would throw in a few ounces of 100% chocolate. The quality is fantastic. It's a really pure chocolate, but unsweetened. So I use it sparingly, right? Like that's what I do. I cut it with other chocolate.
Well, sure, and it really does depend on the recipe, but I would say unsweetened chocolate is wonderful in a cake, in a brownie, anything that where you're melting and putting it in, because you have a lot of other flavors, to sweet sugar, milk, whatever, to temper the chocolate and balance it out.
I use a 90% cocoa solids bar. I usually use Lindt because I really love Lindt's quality, and I use that in my chocolate chip cookies, and because I feel like you don't need. In a sweet cookie dough, I don't need really sweet chocolate. So rather than doing even bittersweet chocolate, which is 72%, I go 90%, around 85 to 90%. I get a bar of chocolate and I chop it up and I put it in. And I find that the balance of bitter, a little bit sweet, and then the cookie dough is makes for the perfect cookie. Next one is bittersweet chocolate, which ranges from 63% to 72%. Bittersweet chocolate is what Ami and I would use the most here. I just prefer the quality. I prefer the less sugar. It's kind of like our go-to bar of chocolate. I will say that I love Lindt for the amount of baking that Ami and I do for the show. To be a little more cost effective, I go to Trader Joe's. They sell a pound bar for $5 of bittersweet chocolate, and I find that I love the quality. It melts well, and the results are always great.
So the next category is semi-sweet chocolate. This is usually the chocolate that you'll see in a lot of chocolate chips. You know, your basic chocolate chips for cookies are most often going to be semi-sweet chocolate. That is about 52 to 60% chocolate, cocoa solids. And so it's, it still has some presence, but it's a lot sweeter than bittersweet. but it's still really nice. It's a really good chocolate to use in chocolate chip cookies. And when you can find semi-sweet in higher end chocolates, like Valrhona, which is one of my most favorite brands of chocolate to use. It's very smooth, and you can get degrees. You can get 54%, 55%, 56%, and it's wonderful because it's all very nuanced. And for me, that makes the perfect chocolate chip cookie because it doesn't overpower. It still has enough flavor. It's not going to be too sweet for the cookie, but it really balances out the caramelly notes for the cookie. So that would, I think that's my favorite use for a semi-sweet chocolate.
Valrhona is amazing. It's one of the best on the market. Like Ami said, it contains more sugar. This is why I very rarely use chocolate chips, and I use chopped chocolate bar in my cookies or my brownies or whatever, is because as you start to go down in percentage, you start to lose control of the quality. So I use a bar that's like a bittersweet bar, 72% roughly, less sugar, usually better quality, more chocolate. The lower you go down in percentage, you're getting more sugar, less chocolate. It makes sense because the next one down is milk chocolate. I use milk chocolate when there's certain, like we made a Christmas crack that had milk chocolate on top because it's kind of like a family friendly recipe. When it comes to family friendly recipes, sometimes I use milk chocolate. It really depends, but rarely do I use it. I have to say, when I was a child, we would never eat my mum's dark chocolate, but George is used to my desserts having bittersweet chocolate, and then also I would give him for dessert chocolate chips, or a square of like a Lindt bar or something, and he's used to that type of chocolate. So I would say, like, definitely try your kids, or if you're not used to like a darker chocolate and you like milk, like, buy a good quality bar of dark chocolate. Break off a square, put it in your mouth, let it melt there all by itself, and you really see the difference. For the milk chocolate, I would say just buy a good brand.
If you get down to 30% cocoa, which some milk chocolate bars have, they'll start to taste a little waxy from the cocoa butter and the milk solids that are in there. But you can find milk chocolate that has up to 40% cocoa in there, and that can be really creamy with really present chocolate flavor. It can be lovely.
I think the reason I love this section so much is because this is where I learn all of my baking knowledge that I had no idea that, but it makes so much sense, but I had no idea that milk chocolate, like as it goes down, has more sugar. And that has just blown my mind, and I will never be baking. Like, I don't even want to eat milk chocolate. Are you kidding?
That's what most candy bars are, like Twixes, which I love. Twixes and Mars bars and everything. Most of they're the 30%, but they're the lower grade, the 30%. So that's why Ami was saying about the waxiness that people say about chocolate. That's because it's it's not as good quality.
Well, again, I love learning. I'm so excited. So I'm excited to learn on this next question because it says, what is the best way to melt chocolate? And now I'm wondering, is there do these different types of chocolate, do they melt differently because of what's in them?
No, they don't melt differently. Ami and I'm feeling like I'm a microwave melter, and Ami's probably not bain-marie.
A double boiler?
A double boiler melter.
No, I like melting in the microwave.
Do you? Yeah.
I'm pretty lazy. You have to be careful because chocolate can burn very easily. So the way to melt chocolate is to do it very gently. You can do that on top of a double boiler over simmering water, very gently. Watch it carefully, stir it pretty frequently. Or you can cut it into small pieces, put it in a microwave-safe bowl, and then you want to microwave it for, 20, depending on how powerful your microwave is, 20, 30 seconds at a time, and stir it in between.
Yeah. What Ami just said there is an important note, which I don't always do this because I can get kind of lazy. Chop up your chocolate because it'll melt faster. If you have big chunks of chocolate and you stick them in the microwave, it's going to take longer. The longer it takes, the hotter it's going to get, the more chance it's going to burn. So chopped up chocolate. And I will say, and I think you do this as well, Ami, is this kind of comes, like I learned this when I was in college, like tempering chocolate. When you put a bowl of chocolate into the microwave or over a double boiler, you don't have to let all the chocolate melt. Like, let the majority of it melt, take it off, let the residual heat of the chocolate melt the rest of the chocolate. And that's just kind of like a tip to make sure that you don't let it get too hot and it doesn't end up burning.
I always thought you had to add something to chocolate to melt it, but this is, again, it's so informative. Like, I think I've seen people, and this, you shouldn't believe everything you see online, but I've seen people put like coconut oil in their chocolate, but you don't have to add anything.
No. I mean, it depends on what you're using it for. So if you want to use chocolate as a dip and you don't want to temper it, so tempering chocolate will basically allow it to cool and harden and then it has a really nice snap to it. It takes a lot of technique, which I still haven't mastered, and there's a lot of different ways that you can temper chocolate. But if you're trying to just coat cookies and, it's okay that they're a little melty, you can put a little bit of coconut oil in the chocolate, and that will keep it from that'll keep it. It'll set very nice and shiny. It can look really pretty, or you can do it with a touch of butter if you want to make a glaze that sets soft on top of a cake.
Also, that's what a magic shell. The magic shell for ice cream. It's coconut oil and chocolate. Isn't that right?
I think so. Yeah.
So because you get that snap.
Well, thank you both so much. That is all we have for the Bold Baking Hotline. And now it's time to go into the kitchen where we're going to learn how to make chai masala and mulling spice. So stay tuned.
So I'm going to show you how to make a chai masala mix, which is perfect for this time of year because the weather is cold, it's lovely and spicy, kind of reminds you of the holidays. It's my absolute favorite. It's really easy to make and you can give it as a gift during the holiday season. So the main ingredient for an authentic chai masala is black pepper. Now I've got all my ingredients ground, and some recipes you can do them whole. Next is ground cloves, another spicy ingredient but warm and delicious. Next is cardamom, and that's what gives you the lovely floral flavors of a chai. Next is fennel, unique flavor and a common ingredient in this kind of a mix. And of course, cinnamon. What works well with cinnamon is ginger, adds warmth and also a little bit of spice. And then lastly, a smidge of grated nutmeg. You always use a little bit of nutmeg because it's so strong. You want to mix these ingredients together. So to use this, you'll add it to a pot of boiling water with tea leaves in it, some honey or sugar and milk. And it gives you that lovely chai drink that I particularly love. Because it does make the perfect gift and it will last a long time, you can put it in a nice little jar, just like this one. It lasts for months on end, especially if you're using fresh spices. Put a little festive label on it. A really fun note, this can also be used in your baking. Any recipe that you see mixed spice or pumpkin pie spice, you can add a dash of this in there and it will work really well. Also, you can add it to shortbread and it makes it really lovely. Now I'm going to show you how you can really quickly pull together some mulled wine spices. So mulled wine spices, even easier. I have a little baggie here because you're going to want to give it as gifts. 2 cinnamon sticks, a few cloves, around 8, and then 2 star anise. This is the basic blend that we have for mulled wine. It is simple, really delicious. To use these mulled wine spices, you would add them to a pot with 1 bottle of wine, a 1/4 cup of brandy, 1 orange sliced up, and around 2 to 4 tablespoons of sugar or honey. Let it simmer, and then you have for yourself a lovely pot of mulled wine. I hope you enjoyed these quick recipes, and we'll see you again really soon.
Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to like, subscribe, rate, and review us anywhere you listen to podcasts, and you can catch every episode of Need to Know on YouTube.
From HRN and the Bold Baking Network, you are listening to Need to Know.